Hey guys, happy Wednesday, happy live. Sorry, I just got out of the shower. Sometimes it is what it is. I had to take a shower before because I was disgusting. So it's better to have wet hair and be clean than to have like 3-day-old quarantine, sludge. So I just want to throw out that disclaimer before we get started because I always upload this to YouTube. So I just want to have a disclaimer on there. Remember, none of this stuff is medical advice. It's not for treatment or prescribing or diagnosing illness. We're just talking about how to get healthier. And I expect you guys to take your own unique situation, the medications you're on, and be responsible and do your own research and decide for yourself what is right for you. But with that being said, let's dive in. I did have a question submission, so I will go over that just because I know some of you guys have time differences, and so if that's the case, you guys can always submit via the DMs. Hey girls, hey, I love seeing you guys come in. How do I clean my hair with borax? Personally, I use it as a co-wash, so I find that it helps my hair get cleaner because I use Morocco Method, which is a clay-based shampoo. So I don't really ever use like shampoo that lathers. So for me, sometimes after like a few washes, I usually wash my hair because I'm not really using shampoo. I wash my hair every other day or every 3 days. I just like the feeling of having clean hair, and it doesn't ruin my hair because I'm not using any like lathering shampoos or anything. So I will use Morocco Method like every other day, every 3 days, and usually after like 3 or 4 washes, I need something to kind of like break up the oil and just get my hair feeling really squeaky clean. And so what I'll do is I'll take a tablespoon of borax and like a tablespoon of sea salt or Himalayan pink salt and a tablespoon of Epsom salt and dissolve it in warm water. I usually use like a quart container, and I will use that as a rinse at the end of my hair washing. So I usually use Morocco Method as suggested. I put it on my scalp, really rub it in, give it a nice massage, let it sit for like 2 to 4 minutes so it cleanses my scalp, and then rinse it off, and then do the second cleanse, which they recommend, and let the nutrients kind of soak into my hair. And then once I'm ready to like rinse, I'll shave my legs, whatever, and then once I'm ready to rinse, I'll use the borax sea salt rinse to kind of rinse, and I'll let it kind of sit for like a minute while I finish up my shower, and then usually during that wash I'll also follow up with just an apple cider vinegar rinse really quickly, so diluted apple cider vinegar, and just kind of rinse it out, and that's like a really nice condition. But that's kind of how I go. Like I do just regular Morocco Method double wash every other to every 3 days, and then on that 4th wash I'll just do that dissolved borax as kind of like a rinse. But that's pretty much it. I'm going to answer the question that I got submitted in the DMs, which was regarding fish oil. So, I talk a lot about how fish oil is POISON. If I say it out loud, I will actually get censored, so I can't say it. This is against a lot of mainstream things. A lot of people will tell me, show me the study, or, there's 20,000 studies showing how beneficial fish oil is. But you guys have to understand that the bias and the sway of the fish oil industry is so strong, it's crazy. And there are so many things that are so scary about fish oil. The fact that it causes acrolein to form, just research acrolein, ACROLEON, I believe, and you will be like mind blown. And you can dive into Dr. Ray Peat's articles on fish oil. So it's really important to understand, first of all, understand why. But the question that came in was, hey, I've quit fish oil. I think she said based on like Matt Blackburn and what you always talk about, but I'm starting to get like really dry skin and dry eyes, I think she said, or dry hair, just like dry. Why is that? Why could that be? We have to remember, guys, that fish oil is immunosuppressive, thyroid suppressive. It also suppresses glucose oxidation, meaning your body's having a hard time utilizing sugar. And so your cells are not functioning properly. Your mitochondria is not functioning properly when you're taking, a gram of fish oil a day. And so on top of eating like EPA or EHA, DHA rich foods. And so, after you quit it, you're super depleted in vitamin E. And vitamin E, polyunsaturated fats like fish oil are going to deplete you of vitamin E very, very quickly. And so you're going to really see that once you go off of it because you're on this immunosuppressive supplement. It really depends on how much you're taking, obviously. Some people are taking more than others, mega dosing it. So I would look into vitamin E depletion possibly if you're having really like dry hair, skin, and nails, because remember those fat soluble vitamins are really important, and the more polyunsaturated fats we consume, the higher our need for vitamin E is. So that's a big thing to think about. Is it true that sugar is bad for the skin since it spikes insulin, IGF-1, and androgens, which turns into DHT, which clogs pores and results in acne? No, that's complete baloney, and I've heard like skin coaches talk about it. They know nothing, dude. Like sometimes I'm just like, I hear people like spout science and they completely don't understand anything. Insulin and IGF-1 are two completely different things. IGF-1 and insulin are like literally two very separate things. And so it really irritates me when somebody says IGF-1 and insulin growth factor and insulin are the same thing, because they're not the same thing at all. Any type of carbohydrate spikes IGF-1, dairy spikes IGF-1, meat spikes IGF-1, certain vegetables spike IGF-1. So if we're going to look at spiking IGF-1, oh my gosh, we can't even eat anything. We have to stop really focusing on individual issues, and we've got to get to the root cause. If you've got insulin issues, you've got bigger issues. You've got magnesium issues, you've got bicarbonate deficiency, you have vitamin E issues, you've got possible heavy metal issues, we've got digestive issues. So why are we focusing on the insulin? Why aren't we focusing on fixing the problem? And so I hate this symptom chasing, because it just gets you nowhere except for frustrated and confused about what to consume. You need to be getting to the root cause and stop letting people babble bullshit into your head. Excuse my French. It's just one of those things where I just can't stand looking around Instagram and just seeing all the BS being spewed. Like I literally I get really irritated. So all those things that you just said, I'm sure you heard it from somebody, because I've heard it before as well, are really not true. If you are eating sugar properly, meaning you are combining it with a protein and a fat, which we should be anyways, right? We should be always balancing our food. It shouldn't be spiking insulin. Remember, protein spikes insulin way more than sugar does. You remember, protein needs a bigger insulin response. And so that would be true with saying eating a steak or eating a piece of tofu. So I personally don't think that sugar is the issue. It's about combining it the right way. It's about lowering stress overall, getting inflammation down, getting gut issues fixed, getting your progesterone levels up, detoxifying estrogen. Oftentimes estrogen is aromatizing into testosterone. Remember, your body can turn estrogen into testosterone, which is why many women with PCOS have high androgens. They have an estrogen problem. Estrogen is in their tissues and their organs in high amounts. And so their body's aromatizing testosterone quickly. And so people are blaming estrogen issues because there's high testosterone. And I'm like, stop blaming those issues on high testosterone or high androgens. Just because androgens are high doesn't mean that is the problem. It is a response to the problem, which is estrogen. So if you're trying to heal your skin, you've got to be focusing on liver detoxification. You've got to be focusing on iron issues, because it's always iron toxicity. If we have acne, we have iron toxicity. And then we have to make sure our liver and our kidneys are able to excrete the metals, and we need to make sure that our gut is functioning optimally. Fix the gut, fix the liver, get the iron out, raise progesterone, raise metabolic function, and you'll find you're detoxifying faster. And that progesterone is there to balance out the estrogen. So overall, focus on the root, stop chasing symptoms. I checked in with my pulse today at work and it was over 100. What can I do to calm this stress response that feels out of my control? Eat something if you haven't eaten for more than 3 hours, or take some deep breaths. Oftentimes we're really tense and tight in our diaphragm. We need to relax. We need to take a deep belly breath multiple times. We need to lower that pulse. If our pulse is consistently high, we need to evaluate our environment. If we are super stressed out at work constantly and we are not seeing improvements in that, our job is really stressful to our bodies. So we need to use it as data. It's not about pressing that pulse lower. It's about saying, what factors in my life, what can I add in that's overall changing my pulse rate? Or what factors am I taking out that's overall changing my pulse rate? Pulse rate will be a pattern. It's not, the goal is not to like every time you see it high, oh, how can I push this down? It's more like start to see your patterns. When is it high? Oh, it's high at work when I'm super stressed out and somebody's yelling at me. Or, oh, it's really high when I haven't eaten for 5 hours. That's really how you should be using temps and pulses, not to like, oh, how can I get it down? That's not the worry. The worry is that you're consistently having high pulses day in and day out and day in and day out. That, what is that telling you? That you're going through your day super stressed out all day long. And so overall, how can we lower that stress? That's how we should look at pulses. How do you use chlorophyll? Brand recommendations. This is in my liver detox guide, which is free, and also my mini class, Mend Your Menstrual Cycle. Personally, I use organic chlorophyll, and I like World Organic. You can kind of get access to like my chlorophyll or detox lemonade in my liver guide. That's really a kind of a good way to consume it. It's kind of your like mid-afternoon drink or elixir. Or I just will add it to like some lemon water or something like that. Hey Cassie, would an at-home skincare LED red light therapy device used for an anti-aging be enough to play a role in hormone health as well? I don't think so. I don't know how many nanometers, or what is it called? Yeah, nanometers, yeah, 660 nms, I think. Not nanometers, what is it? I think it is nanometers. How many it is, but most are going to be anywhere from 660 to above. And so I don't know how powerful that light is, but I would assume not. The goal is to get a penetrative red light. So red light therapy devices that are really expensive, like for example Juve or Red Light Man, they are like 880, even higher. So they're penetrating through the body. The red light therapy device that I made for a more inexpensive version is around 660. So it's not going to completely penetrate. It's not the level of a Red Light Man, but it's $1,000 cheaper. So I've kind of like said, well, I don't want to buy something that expensive right now, so I'm going to settle for something that's going to still penetrate, still do good for my hair, you know, my scalp, my skin, my thyroid, things like that, and be fine with that until I want to invest in something that's going to penetrate deeper. So I think $45 is very different than like $1,000. So I don't know if the red light therapy device that you have, you'd have to do your own research and kind of figure out what type of power that device has. Hey girl, hope you're doing well. Thoughts on green tea and xanthan gum and skincare products, surely different than from being ingested, right? Oh yeah. I like a green tea toner. That's always like pretty good. And like xanthan gum, like it could be irritating, but it's not going to be like absorbed and digested. It's different than being digested. A lot of people got super tripped up when I said xanthan gum yesterday. I was just trying to bring awareness to the fact that gums, like xanthan gum, locust bean gums, which are present in like all non-dairy milks, lots of like non-dairy yogurts and things like that, are really irritating to both the gut and the liver. And a lot of people get super broken out by consuming those foods. And so like people were saying like, oh my gosh, like Bob's Red Mill flour has, you know, xanthan gum in it. And I'm like, it really, I just want to bring to your awareness, most people can get away with consuming a little bit of xanthan gum, but there's a lot of people who are reacting to xanthan gum and have no idea that's what they're reacting to because their food is paleo. And so that's why I kind of bring that up, is a lot of people are being irritated by that without their knowledge. My healthy vegan friend has high cholesterol and high blood pressure. How come? She's not healthy. How does a healthy person have high cholesterol and high blood pressure? If you're trying to avoid coffee for a while, what can you do to mitigate withdrawal symptoms? Had the worst constant headache for like 2 days. Couldn't handle it. Remember, when you're drinking coffee, it's pro-metabolic. And so a lot of people have hypothyroidism, and partially the coffee is actually helping their thyroid out. It's very pro-thyroid. And so when people go through really intense withdrawal symptoms from caffeine, it's because they're dropping into a very hypothyroid state. They're having trouble detoxifying. They're having trouble. So, you know, usually I say just like push through it. Usually do like half and half, then a fourth and 3/4, and then you kind of want to wean off. But if you feel really exhausted or almost like you're dropping into a further hypothyroid state, I would ask yourself, why are you trying to avoid coffee? Because a lot of people don't realize that their caffeine withdrawal symptoms are because of their hypothyroidism, and they're going more hypothyroid. Personally, when I was like super hypothyroid, I would have like horrible caffeine withdrawals. Now I can go day to day and like drink coffee when I want. I can drink 4 cups of coffee in a day, have no problem sleeping, or 0 cups of coffee and feel fine either way. So I've definitely found, and I've seen this with clients as well, when they're hypothyroid, they have horrible caffeine withdrawal symptoms. So it's just something to kind of, pay attention to. What causes the uric acid in the body to be high? Just had more blood work done, and doctor was really concerned. It was 6.9, and what do you recommend to help? I'd have to look at the whole picture. I don't really know. A lot of times it's detoxification issues. The kidneys are really stressed out. Mineral issues, if it could be acidity issues, a hard time breaking down protein if you have really bad digestive issues, or really bad like stomach acid issues, low stomach acid, low enzymes. You're having a hard time breaking down protein, which is going to be hard on the kidneys. This is a lot of times why they say protein's bad for the kidneys. I think that a lot of people who have kidney issues are having a hard time breaking down protein, and so that's causing stress on the kidneys. So if there's elevated uric acid, I'd be looking at digestion, I'd be looking at minerals, I'd be looking at why are the kidneys working so hard and what's possibly causing stress on them. And that, I don't know what that is. But oftentimes drinking some water that has like some parsley, some cilantro, or parsley, not cilantro, don't do that. Some parsley, some lemon, and some cucumber, and sometimes some ginger can really help the urinary tract. And there's a lot of like herbal blends that help the urinary tract as well. Cranberry, again, helps the urinary tract. So doing like cranberry concentrate, or like cranberry sauce. If you can find some organic cranberry sauce in a can, you could eat some of that. Just doing things that are going to support the urinary tract overall. But getting to the root cause can sometimes take some digging. And usually there's other issues at play when you have high uric acid. It's not the only thing that's the problem. So, I couldn't tell you what's causing it or how to fix it until you figure out what's driving it. Is there such a thing as taking too much vitamin E? Yes, there is, definitely. It thins the blood. It's a blood thinner. And also, we don't need it in such high amounts. There is somebody, I won't say his name, who's taking like mega doses of it. I don't know if that's really safe, because our needs for it are anywhere from like 50 to 100 milligrams per day, or IUs, and a lot of times capsules are going to come in a 400 IU dose. So for clients, to recommend them being safe, I usually say like 1 to 3 times a week, and then sometimes people need to work up to every single day. Now remember, polyunsaturated fats in the body do make our needs for vitamin E higher. So if we're overweight, where we have lots of fat on our body that could possibly be full of PUFAs, those fat cells, or we're consuming lots of polyunsaturated fats, or we have in our past, our needs for vitamin E probably are a lot higher. And so in that case, honestly, I'm not worried about it, especially if you're doing naturally sourced vitamin E. If it's a synthetic, that is something we should definitely not overdo. But if it is naturally derived from sunflower or soybean, as long as it's non-GMO, or even MCT oil, then it's probably going to be a lot safer. But there definitely is such a thing as taking too much vitamin E. One time I experimented with doing like 800 IUs per day, and I started getting vision issues. So I went back down to like my 400, and I was fine. Hi Jessica, thoughts on healing hemorrhoids? Oh, speaking of vitamin E, so I used to have them really badly when I had gut issues and was super inflamed, and the only thing that I found that worked, now this is not me saying what to do, but the only thing that I found that worked, and don't ask me why, I came across some research and it was like, oh, might as well try it. I took a vitamin E capsule and used it as a suppository. So yeah, and it worked within like days, literally days. And I just would put it in at night, let it dissolve overnight, and after like a couple of days, hemorrhoids be gone. So I think that hemorrhoids are a lot of times a sign of gut inflammation. There's bacterial issues still going on. possibly, there are like blood vessel issues, but it's mostly, I would say, irritation, or it could be pelvic floor issues. So if we have pelvic floor imbalances, or we need to really work on myofascial release and working out the fascia in our reproductive area and our abdomen area where our gut is, whether we have a lot of women who have gut issues tend to have lots of knots in their stomach because they've been like tensing and tightening up for a long time, or women who have any type of like sexual trauma or any type of trauma, because remember, our throats and our mouths are connected to our pelvic floor. And so if we've had, been in abusive relationships or things like that, we've had to shove our words down, we tend to store that tension in our pelvic floor, and eventually that can lead to imbalances over time, which can affect us physically, hemorrhoids, constipation, things like that. So I'm kind of going on a tangent, but what worked for me was myofascial release, pelvic floor myofascial release, and vitamin E as a suppository. Do you know of any free period tracking apps that also include temperature tracking? I don't. So that's a crazy thing. There really isn't like an app for temperature tracking. So that's something that I would love to create in the future, because it would be super awesome to see your graphs. But unfortunately, no. The only obviously you can do like the one where you track the temperature in the morning. Like I use Kindara to do that, but my other temperatures throughout the day, I actually put in the notes section of the Kindara app. So it allows me to track my morning temperature, which is nice, but I would love if I could track multiple temperatures per day. When you talk about including fruit juices, what kinds are included? Really all the ones that you want. Darker juices like grape juice are fine, like on occasion. You just don't want to overdo it on them. But yeah, like grape juice, apple juice, orange juice, the fresher the juice, the better. So, if you can do fresh squeezed juices, or you have a juicer, that's obviously optimal because there's enzymes in them. Many juices are now like flash pasteurized, so you're not gonna have the enzyme benefits of your orange juice if you do like pasteurized pre-squeezed juices. But yeah, really any. Guava juice is amazing for progesterone, super rich in vitamin C. The occasional pineapple juice or mango juice or coconut water, things like that. I mean, sky's the limit, truly. Thoughts on the whole, you're not a baby cow and shouldn't be drinking milk because you're a human argument. So frustrating to hear it and never know what to say. I literally ignore it. It's just ignorance. Like, it's pure ignorance. You're not a baby Fruit Loop, but you still eat Fruit Loops. You're not a... I don't really understand. But those same people that say that, they're like also eating like tofu and like weird like non-meat meat and like boxed milks and stuff like that. Like I'm like, that's not natural either. So why are we saying that people that have drank dairy for thousands of years, why is that not natural? But then what you're eating, your weird like nut cheese, is natural. So honestly, like you can't argue with ignorance. But like to me, it's like when people say that, it's just a sign that they're kind of stupid or they're not really thinking through things. Suffer from bad malabsorption issues, can't tolerate carbohydrates. Then you gotta kind of work on gut irritation. If we can't tolerate carbohydrates, we've got issues that we have to work on. Usually we can tolerate carbohydrates, just not starches. So that's the big one, is people love to blanket put carbs all in one category. They love to say, I can't tolerate carbs. And I say, well, are you doing grains? Are you doing potatoes? Are you doing sweet potatoes? First of all, get vegetables out of your diet almost completely. And then second of all, don't eat starches. Only focus on dairy, fruit, and maybe like fruit juices. And then if you can do fruit juices, maybe like non-fibrous fruits. Remember, like oranges, for example, are gonna have that pith in them and you're probably not gonna tolerate them well. Or apples, pectin, not gonna tolerate that well. Pears, pectin, not gonna tolerate that well. Berries, fiber, not gonna tolerate that well. So usually I recommend starting with like jams, jellies, fruit juices, well-cooked fruits, stone fruits, and tropical fruits. So nectarines, peaches, apricots, mango, pineapple, if you can tolerate it, and papaya. If you can't do any of those and can just do papaya, I recommend just doing papaya. But as long as you get the gut-irritating foods out of your diet and you don't consume starches, you'll find that let's say you can tolerate papaya, honey, maple syrup, and dairy. Perfect. Consume those for 2 weeks and then try another thing. Oh, I can tolerate that. Great. Keep that in. Oh, I can tolerate the next thing the next week. So on and so forth until you can tolerate it all. But if you continually have a hard time tolerating carbohydrates, you're continually eating something that is irritating you day in and day out. Most likely nuts and seeds, most likely raw greens, most likely cruciferous vegetables, most likely unprepared or improperly prepared starches. If someone wants to research more about their health and symptoms, where would you recommend starting? I just want to better understand what some of this means on my blood work paperwork. For myself, I'm always looking, it's good to do research and it's good to understand what's going on, but at the same time, at some point, we need to just stop worrying about what the blood work says and start working on taking steps to better our health. We know areas that we're struggling, where we're uncomfortable, and focusing on those things. For me, I do lots of research in different forums. I used to do a lot of research, I would start to research something that I was interested in or something that I kind of needed to figure out, and I would just go down a research tangent and kind of filter through the research. Honestly, usually the first thing that's going to come up is WebMD and stuff like that. So I would type in keywords. I personally love a website called Functional Performance Systems. I do like the Repeat forum, but a lot of people in there are super crazy. So don't go by everything people say. But when you read a forum, you have to be really good at taking certain suggestions at face value and just leaving the rest. But I've found some great information in forums because I am able to kind of filter through information. I'm not looking to take someone's opinion as my own, but if someone mentions something like a book or a research article, I'm immediately going to go and look at that resource. So forums are a great place to start. But we shouldn't stress too much about the research. At the end of the day, it's kind of if we have weirdness on our blood test, we do need to do a little bit more digging, but we also need to kind of paint the picture for ourselves. It's not the only thing that's going on. If there's one abnormal lab, then there's maybe something more going on, and we need to kind of evaluate how we're feeling and where our imbalances may lie. I heard that from Healthy Skin Glows, the sugar argument. Yeah, it's one of those things where it is what it is. Loved your story about histamine yesterday. A lot of problem foods you mentioned seem to be stars of FN. What should we focus on nutritionally if we need to heal that? I shouldn't have said those things because a lot of people don't have a problem with certain foods. If you don't have a problem with a certain food, don't cut that food out. That's the biggest mistake everyone makes. And I get a little annoyed with it because it's stop cutting foods out unless they irritate your body. If you have a histamine issue and you only react to gelatin, don't eat gelatin. But don't stop eating oranges and shellfish and vinegar and all the other things if you don't react to them. The only thing we need to cut out is the thing that's irritating us. And then we need to keep trying it every week, every 2 weeks. We need to keep checking to make sure we can digest that food. Because usually as your body heals, you will find that you can tolerate those foods. So don't cut out foods unless you absolutely have to, because they make you uncomfortable. If that is the case, then continue to work on other foods, continue to eat other foods, and then continue to try to implement those foods. And a lot of times people, for example, will say, orange juice doesn't work for me. And I said, did you strain it? Is it ripe? Is it organic? Is it pasteurized or fresh? And so people are like, oh, well, I don't know. And so it's try all those different factors. That's literally 8 different types of orange juice right there. And so many times people are like, oh, well, I can tolerate fresh and pulp-free. And I'm like, there you go. So we need to stop blanketing foods. A food that's pasteurized and full of fiber is going to be digested completely differently than a food that's strained and fresh squeezed. So please make sure that you're not blanketly avoiding foods. Get out of the habit of letting anybody on the internet tell you what foods you tolerate. You know what foods you tolerate because you don't like to eat them because they bother you. Armpits have been really itchy, especially when hot. Could this be detox? Gut-related hormones. I'm not sure. I don't know why armpits would be itchy, except for possibly things that are coming out in the sweat. That could be a factor. You know, if you're sweating more on the hotter days, whatever's maybe coming out in the sweat is bothering your body. So maybe make sure you're really rinsing and washing the area multiple times so it's not sitting on your skin. A lot of people who have yeast issues or bacteria issues will find that those byproducts are coming out and it's causing rashes or things like that. I would do like bentonite clay masks and things like that are going to draw junk out of the skin, and then make sure I'm sweating regularly in like a bath or a sauna or something like that, and then immediately rinsing my body off. Because remember, if you're in an active detox program or you're actively doing a lot of healing, what's going to come out of your skin or in your breath, you don't want sitting there for a long time. You want to like get it off so that you're not reabsorbing it and causing more problems. When you're experiencing symptoms, how do you go about figuring out the root issue? Well, you kind of want to evaluate certain stressors. So your goal is to, first of all, evaluate your nutrition. What is going into your body? What are your habits regarding sleep? What are your habits regarding exercise? What are your habits regarding water? Is your water filtered? What are your habits regarding sunlight? Are you getting the basic physiological needs that you as a human need to survive and thrive? If those things are not happening, first and foremost, those things need to happen. Good nutrition, good sleep, good water, good sunlight, and good movement in some way, shape, or form. Once those things are happening and you're still having issues, then that's when you dive in and you do the right testing. Many of the blood work that you're going to run at the doctor, it doesn't tell you why those issues are happening. It simply just tells you what's happening. They don't want you to know why because they just want to prescribe a pill. And sometimes that's helpful, but a lot of times it's just covering up a problem, right? And so we need to make sure that we're not testing the wrong things and then staying confused. We want to test the reasons why those things are occurring. So things like mineral imbalances within the cell. Minerals are huge. They're the spark plugs of our body. How about hormones? Hormones are the chemical messengers that talk to how the cells talk to each other. And then we want to make sure our gut is functioning properly. And those are going to be the three mains: is do I have my minerals balanced? Do I have my hormones balanced? And is my gut and microbiome functioning properly? And those three things are usually going to fix almost all of our issues, literally almost all of our issues. That's what I do with all my clients, and by the end of it, they're new people. So that's kind of where I start, because it's one of those things. You start with the foundations, you start with the stressors, you start with your environment, and then you work from there. If you're doing all of the right things and you're still not seeing the results or movement in the right direction, that's when you dig deeper. What do you think about yerba mate tea? I'm like neutral on it, as long as it's organic. Hey Jess, you mentioned in your last live about possible relation with oxalates and tonsil stones. Could you please explain that? Yeah, I mean oxalates, if you're not, just similar to histamine, if you're not breaking down oxalates well, you're eating high oxalate foods like spinach and things like that, and then your urinary tract is bothered, or your digestive system is bothered, oxalates will build up in the body. They almost calcify in a sense, and then your body's irritated, and so those they're almost like salts. Your body will form something around them to kind of protect you from the irritation, which is a stone. So that is kind of like in a nutshell, but that's really only if you eat high oxalate foods a lot. I would just Google that, go Google high oxalate foods, see if that's something that you consume a lot, cut back on high oxalate foods, and then focus on digestion and possibly explore minerals as well. Because you could have other issues. I know you said you were doing like vitamin K, but do you know where your minerals are at? Like actually where they're at? Because some people have such elevated calcium that it's going to take them months and months, if not years, to get their calcium levels back down to normal. So, that's just something to consider. Can supplementing progesterone cause heart palpitations? Yes, if you're not eating enough and you don't have the right minerals. I talk about this a lot because remember, progesterone speeds up your thyroid and you need it for proper thyroid function. But if you don't have any fuel in your tank, it's like pushing the gas pedal and your gas tank is empty. It doesn't make any sense. So Supplementing bioidentical progesterone without taking the proper steps to balance your metabolism and support your metabolism is going to probably lead you in the wrong direction. Making sure you're eating frequently every 3 to 4 hours, protein and carb every 3 to 4 hours, making sure you're getting enough sleep, making sure you're getting enough calories, making sure you're getting enough nutrients like minerals and vitamin C and things like that is so imperative before we go about experimenting with hormones. Best ways to balance your mouth's microbiome. Practice really good oral hygiene. So when you wake up in the morning, immediately brush your teeth, floss. I like this coconut floss. I'll show you guys. I have more coming on Amazon right now. I'm just waiting for it. Cocoa floss, which is coconut infused floss. I really like that. You want to floss. You want to get the bacteria out from in between your teeth, and then you want to brush your teeth really, really well and scrape your tongue. And then you want to do some type of oil pulling once per day. So put a scoop of coconut oil in your mouth and swish it around. Remember, it's not like mouthwash. You're pushing and pulling it through your teeth to work your jaw and also get it in between your teeth. And then you want to spit that out, scrape your tongue, rinse your mouth out. And then you want to make sure you're rinsing your mouth after every single meal. So just rinse it out with water. Personally, I brush my teeth after every meal, but some people don't do that. But I would at least brush and floss twice a day and oil pull once a day. Some people need to use like a higher power toothpaste like oregano or something like that. They have really bad oral issues or oral thrush. But if we have thrush or that white, like a really thick white film on our tongue, we need to be really focused even further down, because if our gut is really messed up, we're going to see the effect of that on our tongue. What could lower blood sugar, 4.9, and high glucose mean? It just means stress. So I don't know, low blood sugar and high glucose. I'm assuming you mean low insulin or maybe low A1C. That sounds like a 4.9 thing. High glucose, anytime you have high glucose when you wake up, it shows that your body's already making its own sugar. Remember, guys, if you're not consuming sugar, you're making sugar. And how you make sugar is you increase cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and your body starts breaking down your muscle tissue, sends it to the liver, because it's still an amino acid. Once it sends it to the liver goes through something called gluconeogenesis and turns that amino acid into glucose to keep your blood sugar stable or even elevated. Because remember, elevated blood sugar is a stress response. It shows that your cells are under active stress and need fuel even more so than a balanced body or a body at homeostasis. And so if you're having continuously elevated blood sugar in the morning, you need to make sure you're eating every 3 to 4 hours throughout the day, protein and carb, and make sure you're eating a bedtime snack right before you go to bed. And usually that's going to take care of your blood sugar issues. Literally, I used to have a fasting blood sugar of 132 when I was on a keto diet and a low carb paleo diet, and I could not figure it out for the life of me. I kept going lower and lower and lower carb, and my blood sugar kept going up and up and up, and I was like, oh shoot, like what do I do? And then literally when I started eating more carbohydrates like honey and dairy and things like that, I literally have like a fasting blood sugar level of like 80 to 90 now. Like it's no problem keeping my blood sugar levels stable. And I was told I was pre-diabetic for like years and years and years, and I was becoming more pre-diabetic as I was on a low carb diet. It's really it's funny how that works, isn't it? What about KP? Keratosis pilaris is usually a result of having low stomach acid, sometimes low vitamin A levels or vitamin E levels, having irritation in the small intestine, inflammation all over. So, it can be a multitude of different factors, but I've had a lot of people who say they had a lot of success with aspirin. I personally saw a huge difference with my KP once I stopped eating so many nuts and seeds and started taking aspirin supplementally with vitamin K2. Just not eating nuts and seeds I've been told like probably at least 15 times, people told me like, I stopped eating nuts and seeds and my KP went away. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. It's just less inflammation, and less polyunsaturated fats. Is it okay to take an iron supplement for hair loss? Personally, I would never do that because iron toxicity is a real thing, and iron toxicity can actually drive hair loss. So unless you, most people are not iron anemic. It's usually a copper issue and a magnesium issue. I personally don't mess around. I don't F with iron supplements. I've struggled with it forever. Yeah, KP is something that I had growing up, and I still kind of have it. Like when I'm more inflamed or my digestive system is a little irritated, like I eat something that possibly doesn't settle well, my KP will get worse. But I'll have to do like a whole YouTube video on like what I did to like get my KP under control, because it is like a kind of a process. But I actually made this like aspirin spray that I actually spray on my skin, and it's literally like this mixed with like a Korean, they're called like Korean body scrubbers or Korean exfoliators. They're like something that they use at a Korean spa that like literally fluffs off the top layer of your skin, mixed with that aspirin spray and like some shea butter or bison tallow. Smooth as a baby's bottom, seriously. You mentioned earlier about acne means iron toxicity. How do you go about flushing out the iron then? Well, first of all, we have to stop eating iron-fortified foods. So many of us grew up eating iron-fortified foods, right? Like, what you guys have to understand is if you ate shredded wheat every day for breakfast, which was, like, I didn't get the fun cereals, I had to eat shredded wheat. But if you got, like, the fun cereals, like anything from General Mills, that had, like, 800% of the amount of iron you should be eating in a day in one bowl of cereal. And I don't know about you, but I used to eat a cereal bowl, like, this big. So I was getting, like, 1,000% of the amount of iron I needed to get in a day. And remember, the iron that they fortify our foods with is not iron that's like bioavailable. It's literal iron shavings, like shavings of iron. And so here we are getting iron poisoning growing up. If we were fed from a bottle and we were bottle fed, there's also iron in baby formula, which is a problem. We are pretty much iron toxic by the time we get older. And so the only way that our body can get rid of excess iron is, first of all, we got to stop eating iron fortified foods, which is mostly going to be like wheat products. And then we have to make sure we're getting plenty of vitamin C. Shilajit can be a very helpful iron chelator. Coffee is a wonderful iron chelator. And then we have to, speed up our metabolism, work on our thyroid, work on our progesterone levels, work on getting estrogen detoxified. So really, when you start balancing your hormones, this is why a lot of women in FN are fully nourished. My online programs start to get an increased amount of acne after the first month or so. It's because they're iron toxic, and as they start to mobilize that iron or that estrogen, which is mobilizing both because we're speeding up their metabolism, getting them ovulating regularly so they make progesterone. Here they are detoxifying estrogen, and they start moving iron. And so that's why their acne tends to get a little worse before it gets better. Vitamin E can help with iron issues, but it's really about balancing your hormones and getting your metabolism functioning better. And as a whole, your body will start to mobilize iron. There are some things we could do, like I said, vitamin E, Shilajit, vitamin C, very important. But overall, it's really about, milk, dairy, like high quality dairy is also very helpful. But overall, it's just one of those things where at some point it just is going to take time. Once we've put in the right steps, now we just have to be consistent. Is there any proper testing for histamine that you would recommend? You mentioned blood work. How about a GI map? Thanks. The only way to test the amount of histamine in your bloodstream is literally a histamine blood test. But you don't have to worry about histamine. Most people, the reason why I talked about histamine yesterday is because so many people talk about histamine all the time being their problem. And I'm like, stop saying histamine's your problem. It's gut issues, it's gut irritation, and it's mineral issues. It's magnesium and copper issues. So, I wanted you guys to take away that histamine's not the problem. That's not the problem we should be focused on. If we focus on histamine, we're literally going to be running around and running around and running around. We have to focus on the root cause of the issue. GI maps do not test for histamine. They test for bacteria, parasites, elastase, which is like overall stomach acid function. They're mostly testing for pathogens, but it's not going to test your histamine levels. Do you ever recommend milk thistle before a night of drinking? Personally, no. The biggest thing that I will recommend is either bitters and or grass-fed beef liver, because when you have a night of drinking or you drink a lot, you're depleting your liver of B vitamins for usually a couple of days. So it's super important to make sure that we're focusing on getting those B vitamins back into our body, both before drinking and after drinking. Bitters can help with a hangover. They can help kind of support the liver and get bile flowing. You also want to remember that when we drink, estrogen and serotonin is going to be increased, so there's going to be an estrogenic load for at least 24 hours after we're drinking. And so I really focus focus on doing like 1 or 2 raw carrot salads, or raw carrots at least, and maybe even some activated charcoal to kind of absorb some of that estrogen. Drinking is kind of hard on the body, so I don't recommend it often for people who are trying to heal. Can stressing out over food cause your body to hold on to extra fat? I count macros every so often, but I notice I stress about food on the days I don't count macros. Yeah, for sure. So many people are so obsessed with hitting their macros that they are literally keeping fat on their body, or they're not in tune with their body at all. You know, the whole point of counting macros is to get more in tune with your body. For example, if I say I'm tracking macros loosely, this is why I call it observing macros and not tracking. It's all about seeing how I am in relationship to my macros. It's not about like, oh my God, did I meet my macros or not? You're completely missing the point. It's about, how did I feel today at this macro level? You know, how was my strength in the gym? How was my energy levels? How are my anxiety levels? How was my cycle this month? How was my energy? How was my sleep? How did I feel? Was I hungry all day, thinking about food all day? Okay, I need to increase a little bit. Let's try tomorrow. Let's try a little bit more. If you're not using it as data and you're just using it as a way to badger yourself, that's a sign that you probably shouldn't be tracking macros, and you should definitely get more in tune with your body and definitely be focused on intuitive eating. Because if on the days you're not tracking macros, you're obsessed with macros or worried about it, that is definitely something you want to explore more in a disordered eating, from a disordered eating perspective. Because a lot of us think an eating disorder looks a specific way, but oftentimes eating disorders can really creep up on us. And that, anything where we're stressing about the food we're eating is in fact disordered eating. And it's not good for anyone. I'm sorry, I don't mean to like call you out. I've been in that position. A lot of people are in that position. And so usually what I'll recommend to clients is, if they're stressing about macros, stop counting them for a month, 2 months. Be more intuitive with your eating, because a lot of women are so obsessed with losing weight that they're willing to sacrifice their own health to lose weight. And that's a problem. If we're willing to sacrifice our own health in order to lose a few pounds, we've really gotten ourselves into a pickle. And so if getting in like an anxious tizzy over how many numbers our food is adding up to is really causing stress, it needs to stop quick. We got to nip that in the bud. What's different uses time for H-cell enzymes or protease enzymes or biosupport or apple cider vinegar or bitters? Trying to figure out what to take when. I usually recommend starting. So you start with the small guns and you roll out the big guns eventually. So like bitters and apple cider vinegar are great support at first, but a lot of people don't react to them properly. For example, somebody that has histamine issues is going to react poorly to vinegars, most likely. Somebody that needs a little bit more support than just bitters is going to need actually straight up bile. And so it just depends. Like, you usually start with something a little smaller. You always want to opt for something more whole foods. If you can't, then you move up to the more synthetic. But you definitely want to do one thing at a time, and you kind of go by history. Like, for example, if somebody has a history of gallbladder issues, I'm going to assume that they probably are going to do well on ox bile or some type of bile support. If somebody has low stomach acid and does fine with an HCl challenge, they might do well with some hydrochloric acid for a little while. And then everyone needs digestive enzymes if you're under any type of stress or your digestive system is wrecked in any which way. We all need enzyme support because we're not making enough. I recently heard a vegan say that we shouldn't eat animal products because we don't have fangs or claws, and because we don't salivate when we see animals out in nature. I don't agree with this, but your thoughts. That's so funny. That's so funny. Like, I crack up sometimes. I don't see a broccoli, like a stalk of broccoli growing and salivate either, honestly. Like, I don't know about you, but not really. The only thing that I truly salivate over is probably dairy, and which is almost a whole food in and of itself, right? It doesn't take much to make cheese or milk, and then fruit, which they're both perfect foods, right? They're made from heaven. And so then we have prepared vegetables are obviously pretty delicious, and then prepared meats are also pretty delicious, but never did I ever salivate over a stalk of Brussels sprouts in my life or a bunch of kale in my life. I don't know about you. I mean, I don't, but Some people might. I mean, I literally one time watched this when I was on like a vegan kick. I watched this vegan eat like 15 heads of romaine lettuce. So, maybe some people are. But I just think that's kind of a ridiculous thing to say. And then we do have fangs. We have our like incisors right here. So, I mean, if we want to talk fangs, I mean, some people have sharper fangs than others. I found you through Matt Blackburn, and I'm so in love with your content. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad. Did you think there was any way to get rid of HSV or best way to treat it? I don't know. HSV. I think you said this before, and I don't know what it's referring to. Hi, Jessica. How long does it usually take before we can notice a difference in body composition with weight training? If we're doing the right things, right, we're not over-exercising, we're lifting weights, we're also remember, we should equal out our amount of weight training with body work and myofascial release. I know a lot of people want to like build a booty and build their muscles, which is great, but we also need to make sure we're doing body work and really making sure we're keeping our muscles healthy and our fascia healthy. And so a lot of people are having a hard time even really like recruiting their muscles because their fascia is so wound up. And so if you're not seeing results with strength training, you may need to work more on your fascia and more myofascial release and more body work to actually see results. But usually, I mean, it can take like 3 to 6 months to really see results in strength training, as long as we're eating protein as well. Love the background with the lights. Yay! I needed a change. I needed to be a little bit more on brand, Tips to have good mineral balance. I've never tested mine. Get them tested. I think it's a fairly inexpensive test, and you can really start to work on your individual levels. A hair tissue mineral analysis is my preferred route, and, actually supplementing what you need rather than just going crazy. And always focusing on whole food supplementation, like, you don't just want to be like, oh, I'm low in selenium, I'm going to take selenium. It's not about that. It's more like, oh my gosh, I need to be eating more selenium-rich foods. I need to be, eating more zinc-rich foods. I need to be getting more potassium. I need to, work on balancing these things. Almost everyone needs magnesium. I mean, let's be honest here. Some people do need calcium, but, trying to get those from whole food sources. For example, if someone has extremely low calcium, I'm not going to be like, oh, go take a calcium supplement. What we do is we start implementing high quality dairy. If we can't do that, we do a lot of eggshell calcium. We do a mixture of, like calcium chloride and calcium carbonate. So we're really, I try to take a whole foods approach to minerals. It's not about, oh, I'm going to supplement whatever I'm deficient in. It's about how do we get this back up and how do we prevent our body from getting in this depleted state ever again? Because many people have all these stressors that have built up over time, sometimes their whole life, that has gotten them to such depleted state that now they need to get out of that depleted state, and then they're going to continue with their habits and continue with their healthy lifestyle, and they're going to stay out of that depleted state. Just about getting your levels back up to normal so that you can move forward as long as you're eating a nutrient-dense diet and making sure to, get a well-rounded mineral-rich, nutrient-rich diet. You're going to be able to keep those levels up once you get them back up. Can you recommend a brand and dosage of vitamin E? The dosage is going to be very different. I cannot recommend a dosage. You guys have to figure that out for yourself. As for brands, I like Matt Blackburn's PUFA Protect. You can use, I think I have a code, it's JAW15, JAW15, for 15% off. And then also, let's see, we got PUFA Protect. We've got Unique E is also good. You can get that on Amazon. It's by AC Grace's company. And I actually like Swanson's Sunflower Vitamin E. It's pretty clean, like really clean. And it's pretty cheap, like $11. So those are my favorite 3. I think I have really bad liver issues. I can't go a long time without eating and often wake up starving in the middle of the night. Any tips? Going to start doing daily chlorophyll lemonade soon. The biggest thing with your liver is you got to focus on protein, so 70 to 100 grams a day depending on your activity, and then carbohydrates. So you want to eat protein and carb every 3 hours pretty consistently. It usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks to really start to see a change, but after doing that consistently for about 6 to 8 weeks, you can tend to go a longer time without food. Always eat a bedtime snack. If you wake up in the middle of the night, eat a snack, like half a banana or something like that, piece of fruit. And then you'll eventually be able to sleep through the night and that kind of thing. So it's just about really providing the liver with the building blocks it needs, which is always sugar and protein, and then eventually it will start to get the picture. Taurine can sometimes help. I really like this supplement called BioBuilder by Uric. That can be helpful. Taurine helps the liver store up sugar for a longer time, and so it can be beneficial. But it's very important to go slow with taurine because taurine can give you really bad stomach aches if you go too fast. Do you think David Brownstein's idea of testing your iodine levels through urine is a good way to test? Yeah, it is, like doing his urine or his iodine push test. Like it's a good way to test. It can sometimes be a little bit like overboard in my opinion, but yeah, it's a good test to do to just kind of see where you're at. I haven't implemented that in my practice too because I try to keep tests to a minimum. I think like it can get expensive, but yeah, I think it's a good way to test. Just to kind of see where you're at. But the push test or the iodine test can sometimes be wrong because if you have a lot of chlorine or bromine or bromide exposure or fluoride exposure, those chemicals can be on your iodine receptors, and so iodine will go through your body, you'll pee out all this iodine, and it'll show like, oh, you don't need iodine. And you actually do. It's just you've got to get rid of the bromide and the fluoride and the chlorine first. And so sometimes getting your salt levels up, because oftentimes people who are iodine deficient are also sodium deficient, potassium deficient, vitamin C deficient, zinc deficient, and selenium deficient. And so all of those cofactors to iodine are going to be important to get up before you start supplementing iodine. Supplementing iodine is a very like debated topic, but honestly, I think as long as you're getting your thyroid to a good place, you're getting your other minerals to a good place, replenishing your iodine levels is a necessary thing. Especially like, for example, for me, I literally grew up swimming in a chlorinated pool every single day. And I did it all the way through high school when I competitively swam. And so I literally spent probably the same amount of time in a chlorinated pool that I spent outside of one. And can we not say, like, I of course need iodine. All that chlorine that I absorbed through my skin and breathed in all the day long, of course displaced all my iodine. I need to replenish that somehow. There's no way I could replenish that through food. And so yeah, even though when you supplement iodine, it increases your TSH levels slightly to get the iodine into the cell, it's sometimes a necessary evil to replenish the iodine that was lost. So that was just a tangent to say, like, I know people debate if it's safe to supplement iodine, and it's not safe for everyone. No one should just dive right into testing iodine or supplementing iodine, and you should do all the tests you can to kind of figure it out. But at some point, like, we just kind of have to try it out and see if it works for our body. I need to sleep after every meal, even breakfast. I have PCOS, prediabetes, low progesterone, and low zinc. What is a meal that would help me not have this tiredness? What are you eating? So remember, if we're consuming starches and we're not consuming fructose with those starches, that would be my first recommendation. Stop consuming grains. Stop consuming a bunch of gluten and breads and pastas and things like that. And start eating fruits. Start eating dairy. Start eating, maybe some root vegetables if you can tolerate them. And then when you do eat starches, like root vegetables, always combine them with a little bit of fructose, like honey or fruit juice. And then really be focusing on your protein. Are you eating enough protein throughout the day? Are you eating 20 grams at meals and 10 grams at snacks? Oftentimes we're sleepy because we are eating a very carb-heavy or fat-heavy meal, and we're not eating enough protein at all. So we really need to balance our carb-to-protein ratio. And that's usually going to affect how we feel and how we digest things. Was wondering if you had a chance to look up if cherry angiomas were a result of lipofuscin. Yeah, I did look it up a little bit. I didn't have too much time, but I did kind of see that it's possible. I couldn't find any research, of course, that said yes, it's a result of lipofuscin, but I would, usually things like that kind of seem like it could be. I just assume yes, and I go about, acting like it is, and usually things like that go away. What are your thoughts on eating rice? I cook it with coconut oil. As long as it's white rice, brown rice is pretty high in arsenic and the bran is bothersome, but honestly my favorite is going to be wild rice. So wild rice is going to be number 1, and then white rice is going to be number 2. Thanks for all you do. Just recommend another person. Oh, thank you. I always am so thankful for your guys' recommendations. Instagram's going to cut me off in a minute, so I'll do as many as I can, but if I end this, I'm going to go live again, and then you guys can ask your questions again if I didn't get to them. How important or not is fiber to diet hormone balance? I don't think fiber is that important. Everyone needs a little different amount of fiber. Can you explain why eating protein alone leads to low blood sugar? Yes, because when you eat protein, your body requires a huge insulin response, which allows sugar into the cell. And then blood sugar obviously drops low because all the sugar was accepted into the cells. And so now your body has to make sugar. And the way that it does that is by increasing cortisol levels. So if we combine protein and carb, we don't have this huge spike or drop in blood sugar. It just kind of stays pretty steady. I eat nuts twice a week and soak them overnight beforehand. Should I avoid doing this? I don't know. How's your health? If you have great health and you have great digestion, great blood sugar balance, there's no problems, why not keep doing what we're doing, right? But if we have problems and we want those problems to change, obviously we can't keep doing what we're doing and expect things to change. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be? Oh, that's a good question. Honestly, if I could live anywhere in the world without thinking about adult things, I would want to live in Maui 100%. But honestly, I'll probably move to Idaho or Montana or somewhere like that. All right, I'll see you guys in a second.